Abraham. Yep, that's
Abraham.
Abraham.
Okay. We met a couple, well, I want to say about a month ago. She helped me out with something that I was going through, and she also is the owner of, let me get the name right, Burning Heart Pilates and Yoga.
Burning Heart Hot Yoga, Pilates, and Indoor Cycling.
Okay, there you go, in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And, all right. Welcome.
I would have heart failure. No, you wouldn't.
Well, hi, Ellen. It's nice to meet you. I'm Dawn.
Good to see you,
You never came into. I won't say the name because I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, but there is a spa on Federal Street, and had your nails done. Did you? I was just wondering because your name's familiar, and I
don't believe so. I don't.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Oh, was I not supposed to say the name?
Oh, no, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still, kind of...
Right. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
On the safe side. But, so we have Ellen on tonight because I really wanted to talk about being a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And I know quite a few people that are, and some of them like to talk about it, some don't. I still haven't figured out why they don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay, go ahead.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Like, is it something that? But it seems like in our general area of Western Mass, it's very, very. I hate to use the word popular; it's such a generalized word, but it seems like what a lot of people do.
Well,
I mean, more mainstream, I guess. You see it a lot more here.
Well, I think you see a lot more progressive thinking around food and the food culture in this area. A lot of farm to table in the restaurants, that kind of thing, which is really amazing. But veganism, I mean, definitely there's a large contingency, but I still don't feel like it's huge. I still feel like I'm...
Real quick, before we go any further, can you kind of generally tell people and it seems like a obvious type of the difference between being a vegetarian and being a vegan? Well, they're two totally. I mean, they're very similar, but they're not the same. There's
right.
So well, if you maybe want to talk a little bit about that first.
Sure. Well, the vegan diet is also political. It's got a political component, meaning that you are not going to use anything that is made from animal. I mean, in this day and age, it's really hard. I mean, even taking an Advil, you're participating in, animal ingredients and whatnot. But for the most part, for me, and I feel like it's changing, it's shifting, especially with all of the food allergies. A lot of people are riding on, no dairy or what have you. But for me, it's about animal welfare. It's about politics. It's about slow food. It's all of it for me. It's not just eating Fritos and Coca-Cola, which are animal free for the most. You can eat really poorly on a vegan diet. So for me, I'm more.
I have no idea.
Yeah, no, you can do vegan junk food really well, which is what I did in the beginning part of my vegan journey. But for what I feel amazing about the vegan movement now is that it's encompassing health. It's much. It's for me. I love how I eat. I love eating clean. I love knowing the food that I'm having. It's simple food. I know the ingredients. There's no cruelty involved. And so for me, that's a huge component of how I go every day. So that
Go ahead.
Does that answer your question as far as what vegans do? I think
a lot of people.
The blanket statement is that vegans don't use any animal products whatsoever. So I don't wear any leather. I don't, whenever and whenever it's possible, I will not use animal products. So that means eggs, dairy, meat, leather, wool, silk, honey. That's, and I will use local honey because I feel like that's an activist statement. So that's kind of the nutshell.
I never thought of
honey. As far as also how food is prepared, and this is just a question because I used to belong with this hiking group down in Virginia, and I mean, does it also go as far as to say, and this may just be different forms or extremities, or that when we used to have these major camping outings, the people that they would not eat their soy burger from the same skillet.
Yeah, I won't either.
Same spatula. Okay. I mean,
yeah, I won't either.
Is that? I mean, a personal preference, is that just generally is that part of being a vegan?
Well, I mean, I find myself to be quite neurotic, so I think that there's that involved. I mean, I think you're going to find that there are some people who are vegan that will be like, oh my God, someone, shot and killed this animal and offered it to me, and I felt like it was disrespectful to not partake. I feel like there's a whole just different shaded area where people can lay in this, and for me, I'm not gonna. I don't feel comfortable eating off of the same grill. I don't feel comfortable eating off. It would make me very nervous for someone to be having like a chicken whatever and then be putting their fork in my food. That would make me very nervous. That to me is like.
I can see your point there. I'm not a vegan, but I never thought about that. And this is my opinion. We all have our little quirks when it comes to eating and things touching other things. And that to me actually makes sense. I mean, if I was a vegan, or there's certain things I wouldn't want touching, especially if you were a vegan and someone did just have their pork and chicken or steak, that would probably bother me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a big deal. It's a big deal about the animal welfare, about how an animal is raised, and honestly, I personally would not be able to look into the eyes of an animal and be like, that's dinner. That doesn't work for me. And so we kind of removed ourselves from that. We go to the supermarket and things are pre-wrapped and we have everything available all the time, and we don't have to consider what that animal has gone through. It's just food. And I think that is the biggest disconnect, because as long as you have a consciousness and a choice around what you're doing and you choose your choices, that's an educated, I mean, that's yours, it's yours, and it's the detachment or the lack of connection to what it is your actions are actually impacting. So for me, that's always a conscious decision. It's always a conscious choice.
Now, was this something that when you made the decision that you were going to become a vegan, I guess there's a couple of questions. How much research does it take? And I imagine, like any kind of, when you're changing your lifestyle, like anybody, for example, trying to lose weight, you have to do your research. You have to know, okay, this is how I'm going to get my protein, or this is how I'm going to get. And so was it like an overnight change for you, or was it a gradual, like, for example, if you're severely overweight, and let's say you go to a weight loss program, you're not going to cut down immediately to the portions you should be having, because your body's going to go into shock, and you might end up being worse off for it than you would if you gradually shifted over. But is it the same way for that when you're changing to, the lifestyle of a vegan? Was it gradual for you?
Well, and if
it was, what did you start with first?
Yeah, no, it was instant. And I like one day I had enough. Like, my sister was in college and she was in an animal activist group, and she kind of was the impetus I was vegetarian, and she was the impetus. I mean, I was eating eggs and cheese, and
right.
But it was one day, and that was really like, yeah, no, I don't eat meat, and then it turned into a political guerrilla warfare, kind of like, yeah, no, I'm not participating in that. And like for me personally, one day I packed up all my leather, all my down, all my, every animal, derived product, from deodorants to shampoo, all of it, put it in a basket and gave it away. And that was how I do. But, I often with my clients will say, you do what you can. You do what you do. And so if that means you start to wean yourself off of one thing at a time, more importantly is to add other things in. But it's the awareness. So I've had, I hold vegan challenges at my studio and where people are doing it together and doing the work together, and it's kind of like a hand-led 28 days where people are guided through, okay, so this is a choice. Do you know about dairy? And this is a choice. Do you know about factory farming? And this is a choice. Do you know about the leather protocol? So it becomes on the radar, and it becomes in the orbit so that people can make a decision. Some people, I would be amazed when I was in New York City. I would be in like a beautiful vegan restaurant sitting next to people in fur coats. And for me, it was like, whoa, are you like, how?
Yeah, that's got to be the most blatant.
Right, but again, it's everybody's own journey. Like maybe veganism is just, to keep themselves in a healthy state. It really, and it's also really easy to do vegan bad, just like it's easy to do any way of eating badly. So it's not a fix-it, it's not a cure-all. Just however. The numbers and statistics show that it is, by standard, people live healthier. Again, it's very you're extrapolating information based on people eating vegetables and not eating processed, meat products, fake meat products. So it's easy to do anything poorly, and it's also easy to do anything really well. It's kind of how you choose to do it.
So for somebody that had no clues to how to begin, but they were looking towards following that path, what would you recommend the best source of information would be, other than obviously having a friend that was already doing it that could help them?
Well, I think that, and that, even that question for me reflects that how far we are away from our food sources. Like, it's just eating real food. It's just eating real food and going to the markets, going to the supermarkets, going to the farmers markets, and picking up vegetables and going home. And the internet is flooded with recipes and information on what to do, and there really is. I would say, like, you start simple. Start with one thing, and you take dairy out of your diet and maybe replace it with soy milk, or But I find really that when you do replacement, it's actually much more challenging because tofu cheese doesn't taste like local cheese. Right. It's not going to be the same. And so there's going to be kind of a disappointment, or maybe not. But like a lot of the products right now are super amazing, like really incredible. What they can do with the ingredients. I just feel like it's just eat real food. Like so much of our diet is plant based. Salads and that, like the beautiful vegetables that are out now. Like it's so easy, and we have this notion that it's really hard, or that we have to be a chef, and that's just not the case. We just need to, pay attention and the protein conversation. If you're an ultra athlete or even like a very active person, it's really easy to get what you need on a vegan diet through plants. Plants and whole grains and whole foods. It's not hard. that we're kind of sold this notion that we're going to die if we don't have cheese and no milk, and our bones are going to break, and we're going to not have protein if we don't have any animal sources of protein. It's just not true. It's just not true. So, and that's actually where I'm at in my life right now, is that I am, a super active person, athlete, and feeding my body that, and gaining muscle mass and gaining strength and making strides in a positive way without animal products. And so I feel really confident. I mean, you have to choose your own path. And I just know that what we're doing right now isn't sustainable, let alone kind or forgiving to the environment, let alone the animals, But I feel like that's what's amazing about this time right now, is we're at a tipping point where it's not sustainable, but it's also, I would almost say that it's not even about the animals anymore. It's like our health is being reflected back to us, that we're obese, we have heart disease, we have diabetes, we have all of these. It's just coming back, reflecting like what we're doing isn't working. So, which I think is a direct reflection on our practices. It's not with integrity. So, I think that to do 1 day a week of practicing, having a plant-based diet is an amazing venture. And maybe that stretches to 2 days or 3 days, or maybe you take, animal protein out of your diet for a month. I mean, the ramifications or the repercussions of that decision are huge. It's just, that's what I think is really amazing, to really weigh in that what you do does matter. And that, if you were to write down what you eat every day and the impact that reflects out on the planet, on the culture, like on the society, like in your immediate town, like, are you choosing a local restaurant over choosing a fast food chain? Like, it really does matter. And, I think that comes back to the question of, like, where does one start? Like, start with you. Like, start with your own intuition and trust in yourself, like, about, that drive and having, steak, potatoes, and whatever on a plate doesn't necessarily forge good health or good, well-being. It's like taking the box out of the picture, like thinking outside the box.
Right. Mm-hmm. The only thing I think, from my personal, and you kind of touched upon that a few minutes ago, I had always thought, and because I know as far as protein, there's peanuts, and so that was never really, but I have always just been, because of everything you touched upon the dairy, and I'm like, okay, well, how do, if we give up milk and cheese and all that, I'm all for that, I'm not going to miss the taste of that so much, but how do you get the calcium and stuff back into your body? Because they always, tell us, especially with women and osteoporosis and all this, you need to have the calcium. So that was the only, I guess, hurdle that I always had. And,
right.
And I don't obviously know enough about it. So that was one of the things that I always thought would have been my biggest obstacle was...
Right. Well, so what I'm going to say to that is that it really is about being an inquiry. There's nothing right and there's nothing wrong. However, there is so much information out there. A great movie to kind of start the ball rolling is Forks Over Knives, because it really does deal with the conversation that we have just been sold, this notion that having dairy is going to keep our bones, constitutional, and it's just not the case. That's just not where the science is. It's actually contrary to that in the cultures that have. I mean, well, this is the thing. You could there are some cultures that live exclusively on blood, milk, and tubers. There's no greens, and there's beautiful people. And then you have people who live solely on animal flesh, and they're surviving. And then you have people who are living solely on vegetables. Like, I think anything is possible. but you have to do the work for you. Like, you have to find your education, and you have to ask the questions and
right.
be an inquiry around you. However, the science in our culture in the United States, it doesn't stand up that dairy is good for your bones. It actually reflects a higher ratio of hip fractures and weakness in the bones. Because if you think of what calcium is the hard stuff of the bones. It's not the matrix of the bones that keeps you from breaking the bones. It's actually the brittle stuff. So, calcium actually, to take in calcium, you're actually depleting calcium from your bone. I don't want to speak out of turn, but like, there's lots of evidence that dairy creates a weakness in the bone. It's also about movement. That they know that, like, very slow impact on the body creates strength in the bone. So it's like doing your homework. Like, you can't just, you can do whatever you want. You can just make a decision and be like, okay, I'm not going to eat any more animal products, but do you want to set yourself up for success? So I think we also tend to do it on the other side, that we say, like, oh, but I'm just concerned as a woman who's getting older that, if I stop eating cheese, dairy. But I think you have to just do the work. You have to put the time in and see what works for you. I know I've been animal-free. I mean, I go back and forth. I'll dip into eggs. I love eggs, but they'll always be local, free-range eggs. Maybe like once every couple of months. And even then, that's about it. I feel like there needs to be flex in how we are approaching our food, and we need to be in the conversation as opposed to being in the labeling of what we're doing. Being a meatitarian does not reflect well on the planet. Being exclusively a vigilant vegan does not reflect well on our culture. The more you isolate yourself, the more you're removing yourself and creating more risk. So I think it's about being the best you can be, making the best choices that are for you, and doing the work to educate yourself to feed that, fuel that. Not any one diet is for a person. And you've got to be, I remember I was vegan for 12 years, never sick, never under the weather, completely active, amazing health. And the one moment I think I craved pizza or something. Like, I craved it, and I was like, no, but I'm vegan. I started to get sick. And then, so it's like, it's being in your own intuitive conversation about what you're doing, if it's working or if it's not. And I think the problem especially with the way we eat, or the American culture eats, is that our system is so bogged down and we just don't know what's not feeling good. We just don't feel good. And
right.
So
we don't know that we're not feeling good until we start feeling good and realize for how long we felt like crap.
Right. So,
yes, kind of thing.
Doing the work to take one thing out of your diet and be like, oh, like taking 7 to 10 days and taking something out of your diet and then adding it back in and getting an immediate response. Like, oh my goodness, wheat makes me feel completely groggy and tired. Or, oh my goodness, like dairy, like that rash on my skin just completely went away. But you're your own project. You're your own experiment. You're your own, and it's only on you. Doctors don't know this. People don't, you have to do the work. And it's about, taking accountability for your health and for your choices. Sometimes it's I say this to my clients all the time. If you eat really beautiful food, you have 80% really beautiful food, and you have 10 to 15% really not good food, that's not really going to make an impact on your health one way or the other. If it's the reverse, that green juice or that salad is not going to make an impact on your health and your well-being. It's kind of like you wouldn't pull up to the gas station and put sugar in your gas tank. But we do all the time. and we expect to get somewhere and to be efficient and to not be cranky and to not have mood swings and to not, I mean, this is just, there's so many reasons to go plant-based. I mean, health reasons, environmental reasons, but again, they have to be motivated by you, not by someone telling you that's what you should do.
Now, I have a question, and this might be a dumb question, but again, I don't know. Now, seafood. I'm not talking lobster or your haddock. We'll talk about, like, say, mussels or clams. Mm-hmm. How do vegans view something? How do I want to say this? It's not a cute, sweet animal. Do you know what I mean? It's Is that viewed kind of in the same way as, say, a slab of steak?
I would think that it is. It's a living creature that has its place and has its own will to live. It's not, for me, it's not my job to take it out.
Right. Okay.
It's not my job to make it nourishment for me.
Okay.
That's where, like it's a living thing.
Well, that's what
that might not be someone else's.
Right. Now, all right. Here's my devil's advocate. The school that my girls go to, there are a lot of families that are raising their children from an infant to be vegan. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just saying, I personally have a problem with that, and here's why. I think being a vegan should be a choice that you make as, even a young adult. Mm-hmm. But the studies show that children need so much more than a vegan diet. Now, I'm just saying, from my personal observations of these particular children that I see every single day, they are always the ones that are sick. They have a very pale demeanor to them. I notice they tend to have more dark, they're always very thin, which is, maybe a little bit better as being, a heavy child, but they always have a certain look. And it's something I didn't really start noticing till my girls started school, and I was around these certain children and these certain families, like, on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I find it really disturbing, and I thought, okay, if maybe one or two kids had this look to them, but why do all
How many vegans are vegan in that school?
Well,
like, how many kids are you talking about?
Oh my God, I can't give you the exact amount. There's probably over 400.
No, but
I'm talking about maybe 15 of, completely, maybe two kids might be in one family. Mm-hmm. But, like, in different age levels and everything, because I have two girls in this particular school, and they're in two different grades. Mm-hmm. And I think, my God, I'm like, why is this? And, my daughters will come home very often through the year, and they'll say, so-and-so was begging me for a bite of my, whatever kind of, whether it was maybe a regular sandwich or, some, junk food or whatever it was. And I don't know, it's really been bothering, especially this last year. Probably because I've really started paying attention to it, but I've been just really obsessed with it, kind of like, geez,
Okay, this is what I'm going to say to you. It could have everything to do with them being vegan. It could have nothing to do with them being vegan. It's really, there's just no way to make a statement that the vegan children are anemic or they're under not enough. Like, there's just no way to say that. And I mean, and what's coming more and more prominent with children is the allergies and the autism and the reactions to what we're doing. I mean, this is what I would like you to consider. So, like, when an animal, so you talk about like regular sandwiches. When an animal is in a factory farm, that animal, which would be grass-fed, right? You familiar with this, right? So it is not grass-fed. It's fed grain, and it's fed anything between roadkill, candy, ground-up, euthanized dogs. I mean, whatever, that's what's in the feed. And whenever you eat an animal, you are eating synthesized whatever they eat in their flesh. So ideally, if you were eating an animal, that animal would be grazing on beautiful grass, and you would get the synthesized version of the sunlight and the grass and the chlorophyll in the flesh of the animal, and then you would take in the energy of the animal. So what's happening with factory farming and with processed foods and with the additives of food, these animals are sick, and you're then eating sick animal that is also given antibiotics because they're sick. And they have to be together, so if one animal gets sick, then they have to worry about the whole lot getting sick. So you're having a higher ratio of antibiotics. They're not well, and they're also not eating. They're eating things like, they're eating primarily corn, which is to make an animal fat to go to slaughter, right? So what do you think that you are then eating? You're not having beautiful farm-raised, grass-fed animal. You're having whatever that animal ate. So I think to make a statement that the vegan children have a low pallor. I mean, I am actually in an environment where I see a lot of people who are primarily meat-based who have a gray pallor. And I mean, I understand having a choice, but that's your choice with your children, and someone else's choice with their children, that's theirs. And I think to concern yourself with these children, it just doesn't prove a point. It doesn't, you know, you have to do what works for you and your children, and
absolutely.
And other people should be free to do what is working for them and their children. I mean, so as far as nutrition goes, I mean, again, you can do veganism really well. You can do vegetarianism really well. You can also do it really bad. You can do the same with a standard American diet. So what we consider to be a good or regular meal may not be in someone else's eyes a good and regular meal. So, you know, we're always holding up the judgment to others, and we have to really get back to what's good and working for us. So, you know, if your children are beaming and they have great skin and they're active and they don't have any like weird allergies, like, and it's working, then you know that inquiry happens around you and what's happening for your family. And I think that is a bigger conversation, you know, because things aren't really working for a lot of children. You know, like that movie Fed Up just came out, and children are obese, and children are having heart disease before they're in their teens, and they're having gastric bypass surgery in their teens. You know, they're having diabetes in their teens. They're having, you know, strokes in their teens. And so that's, you know, like, it doesn't really, we don't create change unless it hits home for us. So until it happens in your house, you don't become an advocate for anything different. And I think that's, you know, that's kind of how it rolls. You have to be an advocate for you and be, you know, on the mission to have the best quality of life possible for you and your family. And that's a conversation that, you know, maybe veganism is it, maybe no dairy is it, maybe paleo is it. Like, that's a conversation that happens in your house, you know? And I just don't think that you can equivocate a not healthy pallor. I mean, I've been vegan on and off, but primarily vegan for a long time, and you wouldn't look at me and think that I was unwell.
And I've actually met Ellen, so I can attest. She looks very, very healthy and very, very fit. So,
yeah,
right. I understand what you're saying, but I just find personally that, again, because I see it so much every day, there is too much of. Now, I don't know. Maybe they're doing veganism wrong.
But this is the thing. It doesn't really matter one way or the other. It really shouldn't affect you. It's about them. And what you do with your children is about you. And so,
that's very true. But when, because we're talking about it and we all have opinions on different things, that's why I'm bringing it up, because when we have talked about it, or when I have talked about it with other people, because again, where they go, it gets brought up a lot because of the veganism, and then there tends to be a lot of conversation within the school, and the other parents of veganism allergies. Of course, the gluten thing is very big right now, and it seems that a lot of different things also get added, and it's almost like, how do I say this? With school-age children and the veganism and the allergy, and in this particular area, it seems like it tries to get more pushed at other people.
Pushed at other, meaning like that you're supposed to adopt a vegan diet?
Not directly, no, but there's been things. Well, because we have certain kids, it's best if you don't allow your children to bring this, and then they shouldn't bring that. And again, maybe it's so in my face all the time because I have school-age children. So it has become part of my world quite a bit. And so I do tend to have to focus on it a lot. And then, of course,
so is it personally affecting you? Like, is it personally, like, taking you and your family out? Like, is it harder? Or is it just in the conversation? What?
I think it's starting to make things, I don't want to say difficult, but, like with the peanut allergy, I totally get that, peanut allergy. But now we're starting to see more, I'm trying to think, like, what the other things are. There's, like, two other things.
Allergies are not veganism.
Like, that's right.
Not,
but they
not
always
the same.
seem to...
But it's not the same. I mean, like, allergies, people could drop dead. They're not messing around. I mean, like people with peanut allergies can't even be in the same room. Like, and I think that this is also indicative of kind of how it's failing on a whole global scale, is that allergies come up when there's a tipping point. And so, we started bastardizing food in, like, the 40s, 50s, like, with war and stuff like that, to preserve food. And it was then, with convenience foods and things like that, that we really stopped cooking, and we started moving towards packaged foods and things that were fast and easy and quick. And that's when,
is sad. Yeah.
And that is when a lot of, like, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So I feel like we're in the opposite reaction, and these allergies, it's not that it's a hot topic about being gluten-free. Children are I mean, celiac disease is when you eat any form of wheat, and it is actually putting holes in your intestines. And so anything that is in your intestines is then leaking into your bloodstream. So, and this is happening with children, and there's a direct correlation between celiac and autism. And, I mean, if you think about what we did to wheat, if you were to eat like a whole grain strain of wheat, wheat is in stamp paste, it's in glue, we've refined it, bastardized it, reduced it down to its pasty. Look, our body doesn't even recognize that as food. And a lot of our processed foods, that's kind of where it's at. Like it's not like, hey, I'm going to take a carrot and eat it. You are taking a carrot, stripping it of all of its sugar, stripping it of all of its, all of its, like all of its content, and reducing it to vitamin A. And if you think that when you take that vitamin A, that your body's not going to look for the rest of the carrot. So, I mean, we're doing this with all of our food, and we're taking surplus food and turning it into sugar. So the excess corn that we can't feed the cattle, we're then turning it into high fructose corn syrup and putting it into the ketchup and putting it into the soda and putting it into the candy and putting it into everything that these children are eating, in the milk. I mean, it's in everything because it's money that we're not using. So I think more than the argument about these vegan children or these people, these parents who are committed to having a vegan lifestyle, it should be about like, okay, what food are we eating and why? And how are we going to get back to a more holistic approach with our food as opposed to this fast-paced, convenient, basically we are pawns in this. When our children are trapped participants in high fructose corn syrup, pizza, tater tots, and processed meat. And we think that that's a regular, normal food for us. So I mean, if I had a child, we'll just talk about this country, that
people are so many low income. Mm-hmm. That, and this is where you feel so bad because this country lives so much low. People are living low income, so it's nearly impossible to eat healthy food.
But see, this is what makes me bananas. It's like I bought enough kale for 4 people for $2. The calories that we're eating are cheap. Like what we're doing right now is cheap. You can get a whole meal for $5 or $6 or whatever at McDonald's, but the expense comes later. So, it's about, again, turning over your intuition, turning over what we're expected to be fed. We're expected to be, and we're expected to be fed good things or things that the government is caring about us. And that's just not what's happening. And we've turned the lights off. And so to become a part of this system that we think, oh, God, it's so expensive to eat good food, that's just not the case. It's just not true. More importantly is having real live food. What?
I go shopping for 4 people. And for months I tried to be, organic and more. But I couldn't afford it. And
but I think that we start to get into like it's expensive now, or the $5,000 MRI that we're paying out of pocket.
True, but if you don't have that money to begin with, then I think that's a larger scope. I mean, that's the whole system failing. That's not making a choice to eat well. I mean, you either make a choice or you don't. We have cars. We choose to drink alcohol. We choose to go out. We choose to buy dinners. We choose where our money goes, and we either allocate to our health or we don't. We either allocate to our car over our health or we don't. It's a whole shift in the paradigm. It's not just taking the food and being like, wow, it's so expensive. Food should be expensive. Animal products should be expensive because otherwise we are getting the lowest, poorest quality calorie and thinking that's serving us and then that's really feeding our family. But it isn't. It's actually harming our family. So it's changing the lens. And it's not going to happen overnight, but you do what you can. And so if you can't afford to eat like that all the time, you do what you can. But it's not about anyone else making it easier for you to do the right thing. It's about you choosing what's priority. It's you choosing. Absolutely. But I'm saying for most normal people with children, it is, I've known some people that were not vegan, but like they're vegetarian. that ate the healthier lives, and especially the last 3 years, they're like, oh my God, they're like, I just can't afford to do it. With a family of 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right, and so this is exactly why I'm vegan, is to think that an animal life is cheap. To think, and that's exactly, you have to consider what's being subsidized and what's being pushed and what's being brokered is a lot of just out of controlness. Animal cruelty, welfare, you're eating not good food, and that's being brokered as cheaper and more affordable. And that's the whole system. And that's either your choice to stay in it or not. And that's where my political veganism is really like, the conversation that it's too expensive. It's like, it's no one's job except yours to take care of yourself. The government is not going to do it. It's just not going to do it.
Oh, well, and that's true. And, and yourself, if I was a single woman, and I would be totally, it would be, I would totally do it. But, there's just financially, without going with about a million other things and mortgage and all that, but we all know that's a different subject.
Well, I guess so, too. Other options, and this would be over time as people could acclimate this into their lifestyle, is, for the expensive, option, people start learning how to can and grow their own produce.
It's getting back to your how, like, making your own food. I spend $3 on 2 pounds of beans, and I have food, that I have access to. I spend $3 on a pound of rice that will last me, so I'm one person. So yeah, but you do the math, like a meal of mine is basically it's $4. It's about doing the work, and that's, I think, the biggest shift is, like, we're busy, we don't have time, and so it has to be a priority. And the thing is, the sad part is, it's not a priority until it hits you at home. Until one of our babies gets sick, or until we get sick, or the people that we love get sick, it's not a priority. And you look at diabetes and onset diabetes, like, that's happening. That's just happening, and 1 out of 3 people are going to get diabetes. And then it becomes a social problem because those people don't have money to take care of themselves. So then it becomes an insurance issue. It's just, for me, it's taking accountability for my space in the world. And there's no bargaining that for me. There's no bargaining that. There's no bargaining that it's cheaper to eat meat. Because what comes with meat is a life. You might spend $1 on a hamburger, but how many cows are in that hamburger, and how many lives does that pay for? And really, is that a cheap calorie? And is that really the calorie that you want to be ingesting? And for me, it's not. I can't do it. I won't do it. I refuse to do it.
Well, what got really me thinking about it, and it's something I remember, good old Facebook, everybody knows your business type of thing. And this was about 1.5 years ago, and we're getting away from the food, but a little bit more to the animal products and everything. And I have liked, and didn't even think twice about it, and I have liked the CoverGirl page. And you know how when you like something, it shows up as Sue Channel like this. And within 10 minutes, I got an email from my friend in Illinois, and she goes, "Shame on you." And I'm like, "What?"
Oh.
And she said, "Don't you know that they test their products on animals?" And I'm like, "Real?" I had never even thought about that. It was just, you know what I mean? And just that one email got me thinking about and more conscious about the products that, I switched to, granted, I pay a little bit more.
Right.
But I switched to a cosmetic company out of Europe that that part of their main mission statement, we do not test on animals.
Right. But this is the thing. We all reflect back at each other, right? We all have stuff to learn from each other. So whether we like it or whether we take it down with a spoonful of sugar or not, like, we're all learning from each other all the time. So for me, growing up, like, I was like, oh, you know, I'm bisexual, so that means I want to stand up for human rights, which means that I don't want to take rights away from anybody, which means I don't want to eat animal protein because that's taking the rights away from it. Like, for me, that's how my mind works. So, but that's not everybody. Like, there's, like, some of my most favorite people are these amazing animal advocates, pit bull rescues, and they're still eating meat and posting bacon and whatever. But you know what? We all learn our compassion from each other. You know, like, my friend does what I could never do with animals, you know, and she's, like, in the trenches, you know, and I personally could never do that. But so it's about, this is what I was talking about before with having flex. I mean, you've got to do what works for you, and there's no excuse or conversation that, you know, should be other than what you need to do. You know, it's not right or wrong. It needs to work for you. So if it doesn't work for you to have a you know, vegan lifestyle, then that's the decision. Like, you've made it. And this is the thing. It might evolve over time. You know, it might be something that you're like, you know what, it just keeps plaguing me. But who am I to judge that?
Well, that's it. I mean, I'm starting to think about it more and more and more, and I've approached this with my husband, and, I mean, he loves the animals. Don't get me wrong. You met him that night. But I'm like, I'm really thinking about this. And he said, I don't know if I'll be on board as soon as you will. So then if that happens and I do eventually make that decision and I'm leaning more and more towards this, we're going to have a two different, you know, it's like that's another coexisting, one person that has a certain diet and another person that still has, you know, so we're just going to have to figure that out, you know.
Right, and it just becomes a part of your vernacular. Like, you know, like, and again, like, we're always learning from each other. We're always taking in information and absorbing, and you know, and hopefully we have as much flex that we, you know, expect from others when we make other decisions.
Seeds, pardon the pun.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just like, go ahead.
Oh, with time running out, I want to ask you, what things, because I have no idea. Could you name some products that we may not know have are animal based in them?
Right.
I may be like, oh, what? I have no idea.
Well, there's
maybe simple things you know, most of us know a lot of makeup,
a lot of shampoos, detergents, cleaning products. I mean, let alone the chemical stuff that's in those things.